Hello, hello.
Hi,
My name is Kris,
and I'm Alice.
and you're listening to Xena Made Me Gay.
Wow, it's the first time that
I was
we
gonna, I
managed
like
to do it.
I was like, is it gonna go wrong? When is it gonna go wrong? It must go wrong. It always goes wrong.
In the times of brick phones, Tamagotchis, and curtain bangs, the 90s kids cried out for a badass. She was Xena, the warrior princess. The kicks, the moves, the nostalgia, the queerness. Xena made us gay.
Okay, exciting episode today.
Yes, you've been looking forward to it for a while. I know.
I was. And since, spoiler alert, but I've been talking about it nonstop, so it's not really a spoiler, we're introduced to one of the recurring characters, Autolycus, who we love. I wanted to play a little game, and I think that we did something similar already. We recast like other 90s stars in Xena Warrior Princess at some point, I
Yeah, we
think.
didn't recast anyone. We just fantasized about who else we would have wanted to
Mm.
appear.
Yeah. So here I wanted to play a game of like imagine there is a reboot of Xena Warrior Princess happening. I don't know if that would
Mhm.
be a good thing. Maybe not.
Yeah, neither do I.
But still, if it would happen, who would we cast as the main characters and recurring characters?
So let's start with a big one, Xena. That was pretty hard. It took me a while. I definitely started like filling out some of the roles first, and then I kept Xena open, and I was like, damn it, who can it be?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm still like not 100% sure of my choice, but the best one I could come up with was Greta Lee.
That's an excellent choice, I think.
Oh, thank you. Because I feel like Greta has both dramatic and comedic chops, which is something that you need for this role. And
Mm-hmm.
she does have this like silent power that she can exude, just
Mm-hmm.
by standing there, which also I think is something that anyone who plays Xena needs to have.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't think she's ever been in an action movie or anything like that, so we
Yeah.
we wouldn't have seen like that side of her.
But that's
But
interesting also to kind of
yeah.
see her in that sort of role. Okay, so it was actually a tough choice to follow. I would say that Greta would be perfect for that. My suggestion would be a little different, and that's Renee Rapp. And she's relatively new to the acting world. She's also very young. She played Regina George in Mean Girls reboot, so that would be another reboot under her belt. Two things made me choose her. First is that she's bisexual, and as she says herself, she makes it part of her personality, and she has this flirty energy about her that Xena sometimes have, and that would be like another
Mm.
take on Xena. Also, she's very tall as far as I can tell. Like she's like 180, I think, or like 170, like 6 or something like that. Also, I'm
Okay.
not sure, but like she seems quite tall in comparison to her co-stars, and she's also not a stick figure. So I think that that
Mm.
also kind of I can see Xena having that sort of appearance.
Can I add what I think is the third reason that
Yeah,
you added Renee Rapp?
sure.
Because you have a crush on her.
Yes, definitely. That is 100% correct. How can I not?
Yeah. I think it contributed to you choosing
It
her for
contributed
Xena.
definitely, but also the fourth reason, which just came to me, is that she's also a singer, and
Oh
we know
yeah.
that Lucy Lawless is, and like we know that she sang some of the songs in Xena Warrior Princess, and we even see Xena kind of like, I think, the burial songs, you'll always see her
Yeah.
singing it herself, which I think
Mhm.
is a nice touch, and that also could continue in the reboot.
Yeah. 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 Very fair. Okay. Next up, let's do Gabrielle. Do
Hmm.
you want to go first?
Yes. So again, I liked your choice, but I couldn't use it. So my second choice would be, and I really hope that I'm pronouncing her name right, is Nicola Coughlan. Um, I only saw her in Bridgerton, and I hated Bridgerton, but I really liked her acting. Like sometimes I think it happens. Like the show is shitty, but the actors do a great job, and
Mhm.
she did. And I kind of like wanted something different from Gabrielle. And since Nicola
Yeah.
Coughlan is a plus size actress, I think that
Mhm.
could work for Gabrielle. Actually, I think
Yeah. 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 For sure.
that might be her appearance again if we're reimagining the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. My pick was Io Debris.
Hmm.
Um, I I don't know why I came up with her, but when I was like, oh my god, who could it be? She was the first person who came to my mind, and I was like, oh yeah, for some reason I can see that. Again, I think it would help that she she's great at comedy, but I think she can do like the dramatic parts very well. Also, I think she can sell the like innocent beginnings
Hmm.
of Gabrielle as a character. Also, I think she could pull that off, and I think maybe she would be less annoying.
That is a possibility. Joxer, you go
I
first.
love it. I love it that when you wrote out the roles, you were like, okay, so Xena, Gabrielle, Joxer.
I mean, he does get a lot of screen time.
No, he does, but it's the holy trinity
Yeah.
of Xena Warrior Princess. I find it funny that we both went for South Asian dudes
Yeah.
for this. So I chose Danny Pudi. I
Mhm.
think I think he can pull it off. He's incredibly funny. I think he's one of those people who like it's a global injustice that they didn't make it as big as they deserve to have made
Aw.
it. I don't know because like when you if you ever see Community, you'll see that he's just an incredible actor and can do everything. Like the range that he has in terms of like the most ridiculous comedic stuff and the
Aw.
most heartwarming and heartbreaking stuff. Um, he's just perfect at both. And again, like this was my pick in the hopes that he would manage to make Joxer less annoying.
No, no, I totally see that. Like, there is a vulnerability to Joxer in the original series, but we can
Mm.
play it up in our imaginary reboot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think for almost the same reason I picked Kumail Nanjiani. Um, I saw him in Silicon Valley and in his own movie that he did with his wife,
The Big Sick.
The Big Sick. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, I think that he's great in both, and he also has that sort of he's really funny, but I think he can make Joxer more vulnerable, as I said, but also
Mhm.
sexier because I think that he can be
Yeah.
sexy actually.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
All right, next up
Okay.
is the biggie. It's our boy Caesar,
Yes, yes.
and I think you must be the first one for Caesar.
Okay, okay, I must be the first one, but again, I kind of like your choice better. But okay, so for Caesar, I chose Thomas Darty, and I didn't see him in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I don't think he's been in a lot of stuff.
No, he hasn't been in a lot of stuff, but it's stuff that I've seen him in. He has that sort of nonchalant, sexy energy to him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like, he looks like a model.
Yes, yes, and I think
I think
that
he is a model.
he kind of is a model, yeah, and that kind of is a essential thing to Caesar, that he has that magnetism, and I think that he could pull it off.
Yeah, yeah. Like when I was thinking, okay, who would I cast as Caesar? I was like, okay, who are my pretty boys?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And the pretty boy I went with was Jacob Elordi,
Yes. Oh,
and
yes.
I think it's a solid choice because he's very attractive, and he, as we've seen in Euphoria and even in Elvis, like, he can be really really scary.
Yeah, yeah, and that's important for this role. Yeah,
Yeah. So that
yeah,
was a fairly easy choice, I think.
solid choice. You win.
Thank you, thank you.
And then we're coming to the guy of this episode, Autolycus.
Yeah, so I'm not super happy with my choice. I think yours. You have two, which
Yeah,
is cool, and both of them are more interesting than mine. I went with Austin Butler just because, like, a fellow Elvis,
yeah.
um, just because I think, like, purely in terms of the physicality, there is
Mm.
something similar, but I've never seen Butler in a similar role. I don't know how well he would do with that. It was, yeah, purely a physical thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I would be interested to see him in that role, because I think that he went for the dramatic so far,
Mm,
and
mm.
that would be a chance for him to go for the comedic. So yeah, that would
Like
be
more
interesting.
playful.
More playful, yeah, to see the lighter side of him. But I chose two. Yeah, I couldn't decide. First one is Nicholas Hoult. I also
Hmm.
love him, and I think that he actually has the acting chops for Autolycus, because he's very funny,
Oh my god,
and
hilarious.
yeah. And he has this thing where he milks every moment of his performance, like every moment, every
Mm,
detail. And I think that's also the thing that Bruce Campbell has. And
yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that that's why he could be very good at it. But the choice that I like even better is
Mm,
to gender flip Autolycus and have Stephanie
hmm.
Shu from, for example, Everything Everywhere All at Once, play him.
Hmm.
And again, she's an incredible actress with incredible
Mm,
attention to detail. She's so
mm.
funny. I think that I would be interested to see that version of Autolycus.
Oh, I sign me up. Yeah,
Right?
yeah, and I think she can do the like playful sexiness very well
Hmm.
also, which,
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm not interested in seeing that.
I'm interested in seeing Stephanie Shu flirting with Greta Lee. Just please let me see that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm ready. Um, Speaking of gender flipping,
Hmm.
our heroes, when I was trying to come up with a Salmonius, the the best fit that I could come up with was Miriam Margolyes.
I can see that.
Uh, I think she would have so much fun playing him that we would have almost as much fun watching her. And I
That's
think
true.
that's something that would work very well for this kind of character, where it's not necessarily even about how good you are, it's just how much fun can you have with this, and she strikes me as a person who would, go for it.
Definitely. And also, I think that she could make Salmonius a little harsher, which would be an interesting take
Ooh.
on that role.
Interesting. Yeah.
And my choice was also one of the classics, Martin Short, um,
Hmm.
which would make Salmonius even gayer, if we can believe it, if it's even possible.
I mean, Miriam Margolyes would also make him gayer, but like in the
In another
other.
way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I would I would really be curious to see a lesbian Salmonius. Why the fuck
Yes.
not?
Yes, that would be interesting.
Especially with the beauty pageant episode that is coming up.
Right? Definitely. Yeah, that's an interesting take on that. And then we have Aries.
Yeah. Also, I can see that we're like, okay, who
Who
are
are
our
the hunks?
beautiful, yeah, beautiful men of color that we know?
Beautiful muscular dudes that are very
Yeah,
sexy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, if I'm going first, I chose Jason Momoa. I think it's a no-brainer. He also has the muscle. He has that sort of charm that Aries has, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that would be a very close interpretation of that role.
Yeah, yeah, would be cool. I went for Idris Elba.
Hmm.
I think again, like the charm
Hmm.
is extremely there, and I think that I was like, how old do I want Aries to be? And I think it made sense in my mind for him to be a little bit older.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that can work as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like Idris Elba also because I think he could do a more serious take on Aries, like
Hmm.
I don't know, deeper somehow. I can see that.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. All right, and the last one, which clearly was um, a bit of a struggle for both of us because both of
Yeah,
us were like, okay, maybe this person or maybe that person. So there are four names here.
yeah.
Um, so I was like, who can do crazy?
We're talking about Kalista, by the way. I think we
Oh
didn't
yes,
mention
sorry, I
that.
I didn't. But I guess it should have been clearer. But when I said crazy, you should have been like,
Crazy,
oh
yeah.
yes, obviously it's Callisto.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking like who of the currently like big actors would be able to pull off this crazy lady. And at first I thought maybe Anya Taylor Joy,
Hmm.
maybe she could do it. I don't know whether I've seen her in any roles like that. The other person I came up with was Natasha Lyonne. Again, just
Hmm.
because I think like she can certainly do crazy
Extremely well.
extremely well. The action part, I'm less confident about.
Yeah, she's like, nah, I'm not doing any fighting. That's it.
Nah, yeah.
So my two choices for Callisto are Maddie Phillips, and she's a relatively young actress. She would be actually the one that would like pull off the age difference.
29.
29. Okay, I stand corrected. But it doesn't matter. Like she looks younger, so I think that she kind of can pull it off, like this doe-eyed, hysteric side of
Mm.
Callisto. That's one choice, and another choice is actually Elle Fanning, just because I haven't seen her in any roles like that, and I'm just curious to see how she'll handle that.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be interesting. Cool. Well, if you have any better ideas for our recast, and I'm sure you do,
Definitely.
please reach out to us at Xena Made Me Gay on Instagram and share your ideas. We'd
Yep,
love to hear
and
them.
we'll repost them. So please do
Yes.
that.
All right. So let's get right on to the episode. It's episode 17, The Royal Couple of Thieves.
Hmm.
Take it away.
Yeah, so we open on a religious procession of some sort, led by a man holding a staff with very showy looking giant diamond, jewel, some sort of artifact that is clearly of value.
Yeah, to me it looks more like glass than diamond, but it like the way people treat it clearly does suggest that it's high value.
So, yeah, at some point, some extra even says hail to the jewel, so that we definitely know that the stone is very important. And then we see a figure in a dark cloak gazing at the procession from the rooftops. The mysterious man shoots a tiny crossbow with a tiny arrow into the opposite house wall. The arrow has a tiny rope attached to it, and it should not work, but it does, because the man is awesome. And he manages to swing on that rope across the street, snatching the jewel from the staff and yodeling at the same time. So yeah, some panic ensues because the stone was stolen, and the man runs away, gets rid of his cloak, and we see none other than Bruce Campbell, aka Autolycus, aka one of my favorite characters of the show. Maybe my favorite character of the show, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy to review this episode. And I like that we instantly understand what this character is about. He's very happy about the theft, like he clearly is enjoying it. He's very pleased with himself, and as soon as he sees his reflection in a bucket of water, like there was a bucket of water in someone's backyard, he says, "Well, hello, handsome," looking at his reflection.
Aw. I mean, he does look very handsome here. No complaints. Hashtag men we don't hate.
Yeah.
But also, the reason his face is initially concealed is that we, as the audience, are supposed to know who this guy is because he has, by that time, already appeared on Hercules, the Legendary Journeys. So Autolycus originally appeared there, and then together with Salmonius, he was one of the crossover characters.
Yeah, and we will even have some sort of confirmation of that. Like, it seems that Hercules recommended Autolycus to Xena, like running forward a little bit.
Mhm.
So, of course, the next thing that happens after Autolycus stares lovingly into his reflection in the water is that Xena appears and dunks his head in the bucket of water.
Yeah, and okay, this is something that kept bothering me the entire episode. I don't know why, but clearly Xena spent like an extra half an hour at the salon that day because her hair has so much volume and it looks so weird to me. It's so unlike her. She never has this like weird amount of volume in her hair. It's usually like fairly flat and shiny. And
Aw.
here it's this like teased out blowout type of situation. It kept bothering me the entire episode.
Aw. Yeah, I don't know if I noticed it. Maybe she just changed her shampoo or something.
To the horse shampoo.
No, the horse shampoo would make it flat and shiny, as you remember.
Yeah, fair enough.
Autolycus, as he's being dunked in the water, sees Xena and like he draws his own conclusions from the situation, and he says, "Now I know what you want, but I'm afraid a broken heart is all I can give you." Xena lets go of his hair and pushes him to the ground and says that they need to talk. And Autolycus replies that talk is cheap and he has an expensive ear, and runs away. Great dynamic so far.
Yeah, and again, this is this signature 90s snappy screenwriting.
Yeah.
Back when the answer to how many one-liners do you want was yes.
Yeah.
I miss it so much.
And yeah, this episode is particularly full of them.
Yeah, for sure. So Autolycus kind of scrambles to run away, doing an alright job, but he's clearly rather stressed out about it and in a hurry. And meanwhile, Xena just clearly is having the best time. She's running, but at this very leisurely pace. She has this constant smile on her face. It generally feels like this is all a game to her. So just for the hell of it, instead of simply running after Autolycus, which is too boring, Xena decides to practice her tightrope walking and she jumps on top of the clotheslines hanging across the city streets. So she runs on those lines easily and catches Autolycus. It should not work, but it does because the woman is awesome.
Yeah. So Xena then reveals that what Autolycus actually stole was not a diamond, but a giant chunk of sugar.
I guess that explains why it didn't look like a diamond. Or maybe they couldn't make it look like a diamond. They were like, oh, what if we make it so that it's actually not a diamond?
Yeah, either way, it worked, and it fooled nobody but Autolycus. Also, Gabby appears there dressed as one of the worshippers from the procession, so we know that the whole thing was staged.
Yeah. And Autolycus gives credit where it's due, but he says that it's not so easy to catch the King of Thieves.
Aw. Yeah, and as he says it, he runs his finger across his mustache, and that's
Mm.
his signature move when he says it. And actually, I think that he's one of the few men that can pull off that kind of little mustache and not look douchey.
Yeah, for sure. I can't imagine a real life man doing that and it not being sleazy.
Mm-hmm.
But he does it and it works.
It works. It works.
Anyway, he says that it's not so easy to catch the King of Thieves, at which point Xena easily catches him.
Of course.
And Autolycus is like, not easy, but not impossible.
Aw.
And then checks with her that it's indeed Xena he's talking to. So clearly he's heard quite a bit about her, but has never met her.
Mm-hmm.
And Xena then tells him that she wants him to steal the most valuable object in the world.
Yeah, and Autolycus is instantly interested. He's like, well, things are looking up. So after the credits, Autolycus and our gals are sitting at a table in some tavern. And Xena distrusts Autolycus so much that she ties his hands up, and his tied hands are kind of like resting on the table. And Autolycus is kind of embarrassed, quote unquote, by that. And he asks Xena to at least cover up his hands because, yeah, he's shy. And Xena kind of like
Oh.
puts a dagger into the table and covers up his tied hands, and they continue talking. And they talk about the Mark, aka the guy they want to steal stuff from, steal the most valuable object from. And the guy is named Malthus. And Autolycus reveals that he usually doesn't steal from this guy. We have an arrangement. I don't steal from him, and he doesn't gouge my eyes with hot pokers. It's worked very well so far. Yeah, it's one those one-liners that made me fall in love with this character as a teen. It's that and his chiseled jawline.
Aw.
So after talking for a bit, Autolycus accidentally, quote unquote, pushes some fruit off the table, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so clumsy." So Xena has to lean down and pick the fruit up, and then he reveals that he actually managed to free his hands under that cloth. So he even takes a sip of wine quickly while Xena doesn't see. But Gabrielle obviously notices, and she's watching him the whole time. And he even nods to her, like, oh, yep, I'm doing that.
Yeah, I think he's assessed the situation correctly here, and so he knows that Xena is the boss, and
Mm.
Gabrielle doesn't really pose much danger to him. I think probably as a thief, he has to have this like quick understanding of like, okay, who am I dealing with? How much danger am I in? Who is the person I need to be actually afraid of? And
Hmm.
that's kind of what he's done. So he knows Gabrielle is not dangerous, so he can safely show off to her.
Yeah.
So Xena explains that what she wants Autolycus to steal is this fancy ass bejeweled chest containing the most dangerous weapon in the world. So first it was the most important object in the world. Now it's the most dangerous weapon in the world. Okay, whatever. And Xena doesn't know what this weapon is, but she promised her friends that she would return it to them. It's all super vague.
It's classic MacGuffin. It's like, we don't care what it is, we
Yeah.
don't know what it is, it's just valuable so the plot can happen.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Okay.
So after that, Autolycus says that he's not interested in stealing the MacGuffin that Xena is after, so he reveals that he freed his hands and bids farewell, only to fall down again because Xena managed to tie his feet also in those 2 seconds that she was under the table retrieving the fruits. Damn, those are mad skills.
Yeah, that's very cool, and it's especially well done because when Autolycus reveals that he has freed his hands, he does this in this smug manner, only
Hmm.
to realize the next second that actually he was the one who was outsmarted.
Yeah, yeah. He even looks at his tied feet and he's like, that, however, is very good. Like, he realizes that Xena is really cool. So then Gabby and Xena try some reverse psychology on Autolycus, with Gabby talking to Xena about the fact that a really great thief would jump at an opportunity to steal from Malthus. Maybe he's not that great, and they even talk about hiring another thief, but Autolycus goes, ha ha ha, I see what you're doing. You're trying to use my ego against me, and it totally worked, so I'm in. And again, I think is the thing that we were talking about earlier. Like, I could see those lines sounding sort of cringe from
Mm,
another actor, but because
yeah.
Bruce Campbell is so charming, he pulls it off every time, and we kind of manage to fall in love with this character very quickly. So, in the next scene, we see the folks that asked Xena to help and retrieve the MacGuffin, and they're just a bunch of villagers, like very ordinary looking dudes. And Xena calls them her old friends, but we've never heard of them before. So the elder of those folks says that Autolycus will have their gratitude, and Autolycus says, yeah, I'll have your gratitude and the reward. And at this point, Gabby's moral compass goes into overload, and she asks Autolycus, is money the only important thing in life to him? And Autolycus simply answers, yes, I believe it is.
And then we see that Autolycus is indeed getting paid for his services, which is nice. I was worried that they were gonna like try to pressure him into doing it just because it's the right thing or something
Yeah.
like that. But here it's more like he's working at a significant discount, which seems like a reasonable compromise.
Later on, we see Xena, Gabrielle, and Autolycus playing dress up in some sort of ready made garment store, looking for a perfect fit for Autolycus to disguise himself as some warrior philosopher called Sinteris. So the plan is to go to some sort of auction where Malthus is going to sell the MacGuffin, and Autolycus poses as Sinteris, who might be interested to buy one. So Xena is supposed to go as his assistant.
And while they're playing dress up, Gabrielle compliments Autolycus on his beautiful ring, and he says that he got it from a princess.
Hmm.
And Gabrielle is like, "Oh, cool! Was it a gift?" And Autolycus goes, "Oh, you're so young."
Aww. Yeah, and Gabrielle gives Autolycus some tips on how to play Sinteris. Like, he's deadly. He once killed a man with a rose petal, and he always chews on toothpicks. So Autolycus tries to like kind of get into the character. He tries on some different rich person's costumes and says, well, let's hope he's at least half as debonair and charming as I am, or no one will be fooled. Like, at this point, Xena lets out this laugh, like, honey, you're unbelievable, sort of thing. So it kind of seems that the three of them are already very comfortable with each other, and like they're having a lot of fun. So again, this is a great dynamic happening.
I wonder whether that's in part because the actors already knew each other well by that time. Because for sure, Bruce Campbell is a longtime friend of the showrunners of Sam Raimi and Robert Tappert, and he was on Hercules before. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe they would have hung out prior to this episode and established some kind of rapport, and then kind of bled into the characters, having this really relaxed dynamic.
Yeah, that's actually a good explanation for that. But I think it's that, and also just they kind of click as actors. I think that also happens because, yeah, like for example, Xena has to do a lot of scenes with Hercules, but there's like -100, not even zero chemistry, like -100 hit chemistry there.
Oh God, yeah.
Which we cannot blame Lucy Lawless for that.
Oh no, we can only applaud.
Yeah. As they're about to leave the store, Autolycus tells Xena that he found her costume and gives her a thing that is essentially a corset with a few shawls attached. He says, my character's assistant would wear no less, and Gabby chuckles and says, any less, and there would be nothing left. So Xena tells Autolycus to stick to the philosophy, not the fantasy.
It's interesting that it seems that the corset is this like super slutty costume, but actually, just in terms of how much skin is covered, it's fairly close to what Xena wears on her like everyday basis.
Yeah, Xena wears a super mini, and like the corset just has no bottom at all. So I think that's the only difference.
I agree to disagree.
Okay.
Um, so we then see Xena and Autolycus in their respective disguises board a ship to go on an overnight journey to the island. And it seems like Autolycus isn't a fan of being around so much water. Maybe he's not a great swimmer. And Xena makes sure to address him as Centares loudly enough for everyone to hear. So everyone's like, oh, it's Centares. And there are a bunch of baddies on the ship, and one of them approaches Autolycus to specifically tell him that he's not afraid of him, which is totally normal, reasonable behavior, and that's what people do. And Autolycus responds with some totally normal, reasonable behavior himself, just kind of pausing and then suddenly yelling, "Boo!" at the guy. What was that? Poor Xena has to do some damage control to avoid a fight.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't agree that Autolycus's behavior was so unreasonable. I think that he was trying to get into the character. Yeah, but it really seems like it's not a normal person behavior, but it's like a super masculine baddie behavior of like, let's establish ourselves in this kindergarten as the alpha dog. That seems very recognizable.
Okay, if you say so. Um, Autolycus then introduces Xena to everyone as his concubine.
He's like, assist a concubine.
Yep. And all blood immediately drains from Xena's face. Like you can see it so clearly. And Autolycus also reveals that he brought the fancy corset from the shop and gives it to Xena to put it on. I'm guessing this is revenge for her roping him into this, both like roping him in figuratively and the rope around the legs trick in the tavern.
Yeah, that's fair. Also, it's just the beginning of a great friendship.
So we cut to some moment later in the night, and we see Autolycus explaining that killing with an apricot is usually instant. So when he wants to have some time to interrogate the person, he uses a muffin.
Once again, I love his dedication to the craft. I love how he's trying to kind of get into that character. And yeah, it's extremely funny how he motions his fingers to make believe that he's throwing, I don't know, an apricot or a muffin, some sort of thing. And people around him gasp, like, oh my god, he's about to kill someone in this cruel way. It's ridiculous, but it works, and I love it.
Then some baddie with a facial scar asks Autolycus what he used to kill Neolus, and Autolycus says he doesn't remember, but he's sure that the death was long and painful. The facial scar baddie then, of course, reveals that Neolus was his brother, and Autolycus backtracks as much as he can, saying that, oh no, it was probably a different Neolus, but this doesn't bode well.
No, it doesn't.
Xena then emerges in her sexy corset, takes Autolycus aside, and chews him out for doing her dirty with this whole concubine thing. Autolycus's defense is that nobody would believe that a badass like Centares would just have such a good-looking assistant without also fucking her.
Mm-hmm.
He also casually mentions that Xena does look great in the slutty outfit, and she's like, watch it.
Yeah, and before Autolycus and Xena have time to argue some more, the scarred baddie tries to fight Autolycus, presumably to avenge his brother, because Autolycus's backtracking didn't work well. And he manages to kick Autolycus off the ship. Xena grabs his hand and also falls overboard with him. But in the last second, Autolycus manages to release a hook from his sleeve, and they both hang, holding onto a thin rope above the sea.
Yeah, this is another example of this really fancy ancient Greek technology.
Mm-hmm.
This reminds me of that chair that Sisyphus used to trap death. That was
Mm-hmm.
also super high tech. Like, this is something more like from Spy Kids or Mission Impossible.
Yes, or a Bond movie, actually. I think that a
Of
lot
like
of
60s Bond.
yeah, like 60s
Yeah.
Bond movie. I think that like a lot of Autolycus, the character of Autolycus is based in a lot of ways on those kind of old How to Steal a Million sort of characters.
Mm-mm.
And I think that those characters usually have a gun in their sleeve that automatically kind of goes into their hand, and Autolycus has this
Yeah.
hook with a rope.
Mm-mm.
I kind of like it. Yeah, so we just see Xena and Autolycus hang on this thin rope above the sea, and we clearly go to commercial break here. Like, there's like dramatic music, and like, we'll see what happens after the break. In the next scene, we see that the Scarred Baddie is very proud of himself for being a baddie and avenging his brother. And we see that Autolycus somehow managed to make it back to the ship without being noticed, and the only thing that suffered was his hat that is now full of water. So, true to his role, Autolycus says that he has a dilemma: kill you and ruin a beautiful starry night, or just injure you to prove a point. So the scarred baddie implies that Autolycus is full of shit and he kind of doesn't believe his act, doesn't believe that he's dangerous. But at this point, Xena and Autolycus manage to play the biggest trick on the baddies. So Xena secretly attaches a hook with a rope to this scarred baddie's belt, and Autolycus throws a toothpick at him, and Xena pulls the rope at the same time. So it seems that from this little toothpick, the baddie goes flying across the ship. So it's nicely done. Everyone around is very impressed, and Autolycus is like, well, now that this is done, let's eat. And he gives another go at his version of being a warrior philosopher, and he's saying, and hunger is the god's way of saying eat.
Yeah, so when I was watching this, I thought there was a bit of a slip from the writers here because Autolycus just says God. Like, hunger
Mm-hmm.
is God's way of saying eat, as if there's only one.
Mm.
And we'll see a bit later on why this slip might have happened.
Uh, I don't think that Autolycus meant it. Actually, that's another thing that I wanted to mention, that I think that he is one of the characters who says for the love of Zeus a lot, or for Zeus's sake. So I think
Mm.
that when he's saying things about a god, he refers to the main god of Greek mythology, which is Zeus, which is interesting because he might be related to him. Spoiler alert. Well, more on that later.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It seemed more like a slip for me,
Okay. Mm,
in terms of screenwriting, but
yeah.
who knows?
I mean, it could have been. So below the decks, the baddies are all sitting at a table, and everyone is having a lovely time listening to Autolycus tell stories and laughing. One baddie asks where the woman is, and Autolycus replies that she'll be here shortly. And he says, a new girlfriend is like a new hat. And then he sees Xena approaching, and she's clearly really mad. And she's wearing that corset, and she's soaking wet. And Autolycus finishes, and she's going to kill me. So Xena sits down at the table and asks her lord what he has learned about the weapons so far. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And Autolycus, he's just having a great time, and he's like, "Well, why does it matter? You better feed me. Here are some grapes." And he opens his mouth to kind of be fed as a, I don't know, Roman nobility. And Xena is frustrated with his shenanigans at this point, so she throws a grape into his mouth with such force that it gets stuck in his throat and he starts choking.
Oh yeah, well he
Luckily,
had it coming.
yeah, well, that's true. That's true. Luckily, he didn't die of that. He's just like, okay. So next, we see Xena and Autolycus being led to their chambers at the castle where the auction for the chest will take place. Malthus's sidekick tells them not to come out until the sand clock turns, and then he leaves. Um, as the door behind him closes, we see that Xena was carrying all the bags. That's kind of a nice touch. So once they're alone, Xena asks Autolycus how he's planning to steal the chest. And Autolycus says, "What makes you think that Malthus is just gonna let everyone go as soon as the chest goes missing and not cook the guests on the stove to find out who did it?" And Xena says that Malthus will be embarrassed, like if someone stole the chest from him, and he will call off the auction as soon as he finds out that the weapon is missing. He has a big ego, she says, almost as big as yours, at which point Autolycus leans in and says, "Nothing is as big as mine."
Yeah, yeah, we all see what you did there. Yes, yes, congratulations. Um, I mean, this was nicely done. I'll give credit where it's due. But still, my most favorite like stupid dick joke like that comes from a scene with Caesar that is still coming in the future.
Oh.
Um, yeah, yeah. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. In the episode where we see Caesar, I think for the first or a second time it
For
happens, and
the
I was
first
like,
time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I had to like pause when I was rewatching that episode, and that was the first time I watched Xena in English. I had
Mhm.
to pause and just laugh for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I remember what you're talking about right now. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's good. It's
yeah,
good. We'll discuss it soon enough.
yeah.
So after this little exchange, Autolycus and Xena talk some more and agree to first find out what the weapon is. And Autolycus is like, "Oh, and before the auction, there's time for some fun. Look, only one bed." So Xena mutters, "Don't even think about it." And Autolycus says, "No, no, no, no. I was not implying anything. Let's just flip a coin for it." So he throws a coin up in the air and he says, "Tails." As the coin is spinning, Xena flips him upside down, throws him to the floor, catches the coin, and says, "Heads." She won, I guess. So next we see Malthus at last, and he says some vague words about the weapon to the baddies that came to the auction. And he's hinting that if you know its secret, it's no longer dangerous to you. Then he demonstrates how safely the chest with the weapon is guarded, pointing out different contraptions that are meant to protect the chest, like invisible threads, and Autolycus doesn't believe that they exist. Counterbalance that sets off the alarm being the church bells hanging from the ceiling and such.
Yeah, and so Malthus gives a little bit more detail about the invisible threads. Invisible threads are supposed to be made from human hair and spider silk, which I just find this such a hilarious combo because spider silk is stronger than steel and the hair is pretty fucking brittle. It's like saying, "Oh, this wallet is bulletproof. It's made from granite and marshmallows." Cool, yeah.
Well, I mean, no wonder Autolycus did not believe that they existed.
Yeah. So also, I gotta say, safeguarding mechanisms aside, the MacGuffin is placed in this cutest little display. It's kind of like a mini stage, like a theater stage almost, with this gorgeous blue fabric lining the interior. I love it.
Mm.
Um, Malthus also says that it would be difficult for anyone to get into the room, even in the first place, because he carries the key on his body at all times. And he taps the key hanging from his waist, which is so stupid of him to do. Like, here's the thing
Yeah.
you would need to steal to get in, and here's where I keep it. Here you go.
Yeah, it is pretty stupid, but it's also kind of based in reality a little bit, I think. I was reading one of the books by Canadian author that he was describing like a traveling circus, and like people in this traveling circus, like at the beginning of 20th century, being both like performers and thieves, and the way they would actually steal things that one of them, like the announcer, would say like, be careful, there are thieves around, and like watch your belongings, and then the people try we're trapping like their
Yeah, yeah,
purses,
yeah,
and
yeah.
like
That's
we're kind of like placing their hands on their belongings, right? That's like an old trick, like to
for sure.
kind of find out where they are.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, Autolycus says that he needs a distraction and announces that his concubine will dance for everyone. And what follows is probably one of my favorite scenes in this episode. It's this Bond like movie scene where Xena dances sexily like a badass, and Autolycus is wandering around creating a heist plan in his head, essentially.
Yeah, and this is another great example of Xena's many skills. Because while she's a badass warrior who's clearly more interested in fighting than dancing, she performs super confidently, really
Yeah.
beautifully. And while she does this, Autolycus scopes out the surroundings, but he also grabs some soft, like recently molten and slightly solidified wax from a nearby candle stand, and he makes a mold of the key on Malthus's belt while Malthus is not noticing anything, mesmerized by Xena's dancing. And I remember being super impressed by this technique as a kid, and I was like,
Mhm.
I need to try to do this. And I tried replicating this method and I failed miserably every time.
Aww. Yeah, I also remember being super impressed by that, and I think I even tried to kind of also do it with a modern key and wax, but of course, with a modern apartment key, it doesn't work.
No.
So anyway, when Autolycus announced that Xena is going to dance for everyone, he called it the Dance of Three Veils. And Xena even tried to quickly whisper to him, there are only two veils on this dress. But yeah, and like as Charlotte from Sex and the City would call it, it's a naked dress. So there's not a lot of things that you could tear from it. So yeah, when Xena kind of gets rid of both of the veils, she looks at Autolycus like, well, shouldn't you stop it? While still dancing. And Autolycus, in the meantime, is chatting with the auction host, with Malthus, that he might consider selling Xena to him because Malthus is clearly, as you say, mesmerized. And he also says that like maybe she could be a part of my payment for the chest. So when Zeta looks at him, he's like, they want to see more? Cherish. And this pushes Xena over the edge, and she smashes a nearby little cake,
Like
making the
pie?
creams
Yeah.
like pie, yeah, like something with cream,
Hmm.
making the cream splash on Autolycus's face. And Autolycus is like, okay, maybe that's enough for now. And then Xena, still furious, comes up to him and smashes the cake on his face and chest, shoving it into his open shirt. And for some reason, as a teen, I kind of found it incredibly sexy.
Oh dear. No, no, I'm super not into food play, so not for me. We then see the next scene, and Xena and Alex are wearing their regular character clothes, with the exception of Xena not having her armor on. And they're
Mhm.
discussing the last details of the plan, which involves tying the chest to an anchor. It's unclear.
I guess when they go back, they kind of wanted.
Yeah,
This was the way that they could kind of like take the chest with them.
I
Yeah.
guess. However, as they walk up to the little stage thing that the chest is kept in, Xena says that it's a little crowded in there. The camera pans, and we see that Malthus is in there, dead, with an arrow sticking from his body, and the chest is now missing. Xena reaches towards him, at which point she touches the invisible threads that Autolycus was so certain weren't there and sets off the bells. And we assume at that point they somehow managed to run away undetected.
Yeah, I think it's even Autolycus who reaches and touches the body and sets off the threads, which is even worse. So Xena just grabs him by the chest and she's like, no threads, believe you, okay then. And then they run.
Yeah. In the next scene, though, Xena and Autolycus are back in their respective disguises, pretending that they were just woken up. They look kind of disheveled a little bit, and that they have no idea what the fuss is about. And all of the other baddies are gathering around a table, and on the table, there's Malthus. Autolycus is like, oh well, I guess that means there's no auction. When does the ship leave? And one of the baddies is like, it's already left. And it's not coming back until I have the chest or the murderer. And Autolycus is like, I don't like this, and storms off.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the baddie who says that is actually a sidekick of Malthus. And he's also very distinctive as a character. Like, this episode has a lot of characters, but most of them are done extremely well. And this one is like this silent, broody type who is kind of a little gay for his boss. It kind of seems that way.
Back in the room, Autolycus is like, okay, I'm out. Malthus's ego was important to our plan. Now he's dead. So is his ego. So is our plan. I gotta say that, yeah, in a show that is super full of zingery dialogues, Autolycus certainly has the highest density of zingers per square number of words said.
Yeah, this character is definitely made with a lot of love. And it's cool that it also doesn't mean that he's this Mary Sue character, because sometimes when the screenwriters love a character too much, it also could be a bad thing, because then they kind of like start to worship him and make other characters react weirdly to him.
See Tyrion in the later seasons of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, definitely it's that. And like the screenwriters clearly love the character, but they managed to kind of insert enough flaws into him, I think, that makes him human and makes him relatable.
Mm. Xena says that they can't abort the mission because the MacGuffin is too important to her friends. And she finally gives us some context about the friends, saying that once she was wounded, and they took care of her. And when her enemies came looking for her, one of them even died protecting her. Xena adds that she doesn't expect Autolycus to understand, and he's visibly offended by that. He also shares a bit about himself. He says that his father was killed before he was born. His mother died when he was 8, so his older brother took care of him for some time before also getting killed at some point. So that's, I guess, his way of saying, I get it, and I'm not leaving. He does add that he needs to get some sleep, opens the curtain that's kind of surrounding the bed, and ta-da! There's the MacGuffin just sitting on their bed. And of course, at that exact moment, someone knocks.
Yeah. But before we get into what happens next, I wanted to say a few words about Autolycus's father. So when I first watched it as a teen, I was super disappointed by that scene, because I was like, no, I know that Autolycus is a great thief because he's the son of Hermes in Greek mythology, and that's what makes him such a great trickster. But then rewatching it, I kind of feel that it's still implied, because Greek gods had a habit of visiting mortal women in disguises. So the man that Autolycus thought was his biological father might have nothing to do with his birth. So I'm kind of sticking to that in my head, since Autolycus also has sometimes demonstrated the abilities of a demigod, like the qualities of a demigod, at least in the area of his expertise. And yeah, I can see that he inherits a lot from Hermes. After all, Hermes is the Greek god with the best sense of humor.
Aww. So someone knocks.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to hide the MacGuffin somehow. So at first, Autolycus tugs at the curtains to hide himself and the MacGuffin together behind the curtains. but he tugs so hard at them that the whole structure collapses on top of him and he can't use it anymore. So Xena then improvises by throwing Autolycus onto the bed on top of the MacGuffin, and she straddles him in a way that looks like she's kind of about to peg him, which looks really,
Mhm.
really hot.
Yeah.
And something's telling me that Autolycus would be quite into that.
Oh my god, he totally would. And yeah, this scene really does look hot. And I remember also watching it for the first time, I didn't quite understand like the position that they were in. I'm like, like it's weird. Like shouldn't like he be on top? Like
Mm,
it should be the other way around.
no, no,
But
I don't think
no,
he should.
no. No, this makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. So the guard opens the door at that moment, sees them, and he also cannot deal with how hot it all looks and just leaves. And Autolycus immediately is like, oh, they might come back at any moment. Maybe we should continue.
Aw. Who could blame him?
Yeah. But Xena clearly does not agree because she literally headbutts him in the face. Ouch. So she looks at the MacGuffin, and it has some inscription on it about how one should not fear the truth, or some shit like that, which is similar to what Malthus said when he was uh, introducing the MacGuffin. And Xena decides that they need to put the chest back because the person who took it and dumped it on them thinks that they've got the upper hand somehow. So while Xena is setting things up to lower the chest back in its place from some balcony, Autolycus says that Hercules never mentioned her, and he asks if the two of them have, you know. And Xena tells him to mind his own fucking business, and he's like, oh, well, I didn't think so.
Aw.
So they start lowering the chest into place, back into its little stage situation. When the sidekick baddie, the one that takes over the auction, comes in, and Xena distracts him by being all sexy and shit. And meanwhile, Autolycus manages somehow to get tangled in the rope used to lower the chest, and at some point he's hanging from his feet.
He's clearly struggling, yeah.
Yeah. So Xena, uh, so Xena starts making out with the sidekick, and as she's doing that, she throws the chakram at the rope to cut Autolycus loose. And the sidekick notices none of this. So while the sidekick is basically motorboating Xena,
Ew.
that's what's happening.
That's true, yeah.
He, Autolycus sneaks towards the door and he pretends that he just got there. And they're standing maybe like 2 meters apart. And Xena's just like, oh, we were just talking. And Autolycus is like, oh, okay. And then they leave. Okay. So the sidekick is left with a raging boner and lots of confusion, which is only exacerbated, the confusion, although maybe the boner also, I don't know, when he sees that the MacGuffin is back in its spot.
Yeah. This whole scene is super funny. And actually, it's very hard to retell this episode because if we are quoting every funny bit that's done and said, we might as well just read the script.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be our longest episode ever.
Definitely. Yeah, because like there are a lot of cool zingers that we want to retell.
Yeah.
But for example, in this scene, Xena says to the sidekick, how are you with long walks in the moonlight? And she's playing this concubine sexy lady, and she's like, well, it seems that you've seen some danger uh in your life. So it's like it's super funny to see Xena in that role. And also when the sidekick is motorboating her, as you say, Xena looks at Autolycus and she kind of raises one eyebrow and she's like, well, are you gonna stop it anytime soon? Like, it's really nicely done.
Yeah. So in the morning, people are talking about how the MacGuffin's power will soon be demonstrated by killing some random fishermen. But
As you do.
first, yeah, yeah. But first, there's something else. Some other baddie who we haven't seen by that point carries in a person covered with a rug, throws this person onto the ground, removes the rug, and we see that it's Gabrielle. So Xena immediately jumps to her feet, but the baddie that brought her threatens to kill her, to kill Gabrielle, by pressing on her temples too hard. Sure. And we then find out that the baddie threatening Gabrielle is the real Centaries. So yeah, the guy who
Ye-
Autolycus has been impersonating.
Yeah, yeah. It actually is a cool thing that he made an appearance. We have been talking about him so much, and it would be a shame if he wasn't there at the end. So it's like the Chekhov's gun fired. Also, it's cool that he's nothing like the character that Autolycus created in his head. So apparently, all the thing about killing people with rose petals, it's an exaggeration, and he's just master of pressure points, just like Xena is.
Yeah, and he also is dressed in a more subdued manner. Like clearly, Autolycus chose all these loud colors for his disguise, but Centaurus himself, like he also has like a slightly Eastern,
Eastern.
yeah, style in his clothing, but not as flashy as what Autolycus went for, which would also checks out given what kind of a person Autolycus is.
Yeah, yeah, and also I think at some point Centaurus even asks, like, "Who's your colorful friend of Xena?"
So Gabrielle addresses Xena by her name, and Centaurus is like, "Ooh, the warrior princess! I'm excited to meet you." And
Aw.
Autolycus introduces himself as the king of thieves, and for some reason he says it in a way that suggests that he's not proud of that, which seems pretty out of character. I don't know why he does that.
I think it's just the situation is like pretty shitty at this point. Like
Yeah,
he's not Xena, he's not used to those high pressure situations, so
that's
he's like,
fair.
"Well, I guess they're killing us now. I was the king of thieves. Cool, cool, cool."
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay. The baddie with the facial scar then hilariously shouts, "Imposter!" Because it seems like this is how long it's taking him to realize what's happening. Like, Centaries said that he was the real Centaries like 5 minutes ago, and only now has it like reached the right brain cell that is like, "Oh shit, imposter!"
There are not a lot of brain cells there. So
No, no, just a handful. Yeah. So the scarred baddie offers to kill both Autolycus and Xena to avenge Malthus's death, but Xena's like, "Bitch, you're the one who killed him." And so Xena figured that out because earlier on, that scarred baddie said something similar to what was inscribed on the MacGuffin. It's flimsy as fuck as far as evidence goes, but she turns out to be correct, and now all the other baddies want to kill him.
I don't know. I kind of it doesn't feel flimsy to me. I remember kind of clocking that too because the scarred baddie says something like Malthus didn't fear the truth, but he was killed by an assassin.
Hmm.
So, and that's like don't fear the truth is the thing that is inscribed on the chest. So I remember even clocking that a little bit when I was first watching, and I like mystery stories and detective stories where the viewers can kind of draw their own conclusions. So I was okay with that.
Okay. Centaries offers to kill the scarred baddie, and as you already mentioned, it seems like he also went to the five finger death punch school that Xena has attended. Because
Yep.
basically the way that goes is that he pokes the guy in a few random spots on his body, causing him quote unquote excruciating pain, and then quote unquote explodes his brain by poking his eyes, not gouging his eyes out or anything, nothing like what happened to Prince Oberyn, just poking, and that does it.
Yeah, but also we get a little taste of his philosophizing. And I would say it's not much better than the things that Autolycus was saying. Because he was like, death has 1,000 doors to let out life, and I've saved one just for you. And then he poked his eyes.
Then Centaries offers the other baddie to kill Gabrielle. A short fight ensues, and Xena, Autolycus, and Gabrielle manage to run away. They are pursued, but not by any of the main baddies, because those want to attend the MacGuffin demonstration.
Yeah, I also like the fact that when they run away, Xena does most of the fighting, as she should. And the first thing that Autolycus does is helps Gabrielle to get up and make sure that she can lean on him as they run. That's kind of sweet.
Yeah. And indeed, our heroes manage to get away. So once they feel like there's a safe amount of distance, they start discussing their next steps. And Xena says that the plan remains as it was. It is to get the chest. And poor Autolycus is clearly very stressed out. And he's like, is your life always like this? And Xena shrugs and is like, yeah, pretty much.
Aw, poor thing.
Then Xena and Autolycus get back to their room to change back into their regular clothes. And there's some flirting and sexual tension between them as they do that, because like all episodes, Xena was waving Autolycus's advances away as kind of annoying more than anything, but at this time it seems like she's kind of enjoying it.
She does, yeah. And Autolycus keeps talking about the fact that Hercules is a fool for letting Xena get away. And Xena is like, Hercules is not that blind as you think. It's just neither of us want to fool ourselves. And Autolycus answers, and then there are some of us who live to fool ourselves. And he gazes into Xena's eyes.
Aww. It is cute. It is cute. I
Yeah.
hate that it's really cute, but it is really cute.
It is. It is, yeah.
Meanwhile, poor Gabrielle gets captured by Centaries again. Poor thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the best episode for Gabby's storyline.
No. Xena and Autolycus finally face the baddies that were sent after them. Autolycus tells Xena to go and get the chest while he holds the baddies off.
Yeah, at that point Xena says like, "Are you kidding me?" And Autolycus replies like, "I think I'm kidding myself. Go, go."
Yeah, but he does quite a solid job, given that fighting is clearly not his strongest suit. And it's fun to see some, I guess, Hercules style fight choreo. It's quite different from what we've gotten used to already with Xena.
Yeah, actually it's a good point. I didn't notice that, but yeah, he clearly fights in a different manner and more direct, more just throwing punches.
Yeah, yeah. And then we see that all the baddies are gathered in a cave for the MacGuffin demonstration. And Xena comes in. She fights Centaries, and again, it's a different fighting style that is pretty much entirely poke based. It's just like who can poke the other person in a random spot on their body, causing them excruciating pain. um, it does look like a fairly even matchup, and at one point, Xena is actually in a lot of danger, but in the end, she kills Centaries by poking him in the chest.
I really love this scene, both because it's very different and because Centaries has a very impressive and ridiculous fighting style.
It looks
He's like
so
a
fucking goofy.
right.
Oh,
I love it. He's like a bird.
yeah.
He lifts his leg up at some point, and he's like making those little geese figures with his fingers.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I
awesome.
think they try to borrow from kung fu, but
Hmm.
just bastardized it so much that they made it look super goofy.
Yeah, but I think that it's very self-aware. Like
Yeah.
it's supposed to be goofy, but also it's supposed to show us that this is actually a serious opponent to
Yeah.
Xena,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
which we do. Like we really see that at some point he was about to kill her,
Yeah.
but he was like seconds from it.
Yeah.
Which is also refreshing because usually Xena just fights with people who are like
Not even close to
not
her
even
level.
not even close. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fight was ridiculously great because it basically looked like two chiropractors fighting each other. Like, let's just dislocate the joints and put them back together
Yeah.
as we fight.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's great. So once Xena kills Centaries, there's some more fighting, and this time Xena and Gabrielle and Autolycus, who arrives just in time, basically fight all of the baddies gathered for the MacGuffin demonstration.
Yeah, it's also a funny scene. At some point, Autolycus and Xena they stand close to each other, close enough to talk, and Autolycus asks, "Do I concentrate on anyone in particular, or do we hate them all?" And Xena's like, "Yeah, yeah, you can just like we hate them all." So yeah, as you said, Autolycus is not an excellent fighter, but he still pulls through, and he gets a lot of punches in, and ultimately defeats his opponent. But he is hit in the face a few times also, and again it's refreshing to see this kind of middle of the road fighter because before we only got like we have Xena who is like
God
god
tier.
tier. And then we have like those who are like warriors who are just like very good fighters and they almost never have any problems, and those who are like jocks or like Gabby at the very beginning of the series. And I like that Atalik is like he can fight. He's just not enjoying it as much, and he's not as good at it, but he's not a coward, and he can throw some punches.
Yep. Yeah. So they defeat everyone but one person, the sidekick, the one that
Mm-hmm.
Xena earlier made out with. And
Mm-hmm.
he does open the chest to get the MacGuffin.
Mm-hmm.
And when he does that, a fireball energy ball thing flies out of it. And Xena tells everyone not to run, but face it. Because I guess that's what, like, face the truth stuff was
Mm-hmm.
all about. Um, the sidekick does run though, and he's killed by the energy ball, with it kind of sending a fire beam of sorts into the sidekick, frying the guy to a crisp, leaving just a human-shaped pile of ashes on the ground. Then the energy ball goes away. That was incredible, says Gabrielle. It's so random.
That's funny. Yeah, Gabriel is an afterthought in this episode. um yeah, but I kind of this is the thing that just came to me. I kind of like that the sidekick is the one who is killed like that because he was curious what the weapon is, but he didn't know what the weapon was, right?
Mm.
His boss knew that,
Mhm.
Malthus, who was killed. So, and Malthus said that he knew the secret, so he also knew not to run.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a nice touch that ties everything together.
Mm.
But also, I like that in this scene, Xena grabs Autolycus and Gabrielle by their hands to keep them steady, to keep them from running. And it's a nice touch that Gabrielle keeps looking at the fire ball and like the torched guy, and Xena keeps looking, of course, and Autolycus covers his eyes.
Yeah, yeah, I thought that was so cute.
Mhm.
So, Xena walks up to the MacGuffin. and she
Yeah.
retrieves from the chest the weapon, which turns out to be a tablet with the 10 Commandments on them. No! Oh, it's so disappointing.
Yeah, yeah. And I also
Ah.
forgot it was that. I rewatched this episode a ton of times, and I keep forgetting that it's that because it's so ridiculous. But yeah, yeah.
So this
There's
is
another
why I
Mm,
think the writers slipped up with with writing
gods.
God, God's way, as if there's just one, because they were about to dump some Christianity on us.
Ugh, yeah, that's unfortunate. But Autolycus saves the scene for me when he comes up to the plate and he's like, "Thou shall not steal." What suckers could live by those laws?
I mean, okay, I guess technically it could be a Hebrew thing, but let's face it, it's not.
Yeah, I think it's just extremely not important what the MacGuffin is, and I think it would be much cooler if it was a Pulp Fiction
Yes,
sort of situation, right?
for sure. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So our heroes return the Christianity MacGuffin to Xena's friends. Autolycus receives his second payment, so it was half before, half later type of deal, and tells the Christians to like, share, and subscribe because he's only as good as his reputation. So they should tell everyone that Autolycus is indeed the king of thieves.
Oh.
So Autolycus shakes Gabrielle's hand to say goodbye. And for Xena, he has something else in mind because he starts leaning for a kiss very slowly. And Xena lets that happen for a bit, only
Aw.
then to just extend her hand for another handshake. Autolycus takes the hand and kisses it, all while making eye contact. It's extremely charming.
Mhm.
He then walks away, and Gabrielle is like, "Oh, he's nice. I like him, even though he's just a thief." And Xena's like, "Is he?" And we see that Autolycus sneakily put the second payment back onto the poor Christian's carriage because they were saying like,
This is all we have.
"We can't give you more. This is all we have." So
Yeah.
he felt kind of bad for taking everything. So the second half he put back. Gabrielle says she wishes she'd known he would do that because then she wouldn't have taken this. And then she reveals she stole Autolycus's ring. And I mean,
Mhm.
given their respective levels of skill with stealing, I think we can very safely assume that Autolycus let her take it as kind of a goodbye gift.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that assessment. And anyway, Gabby says that she'll return the ring to the rightful owner as soon as she finds this princess that Autolycus borrowed the ring from in the first place. And they walk off into the sunset, I mean, into the woods. And that's how the episode ends.
Yeah, and we get some fun credits. They say no ancient and inflexible rules governing moral behavior were harmed during the production of this motion picture.
Okay, that's cute.
That is cute. So, what for you was the gayest moment of this episode?
It's hard.
Yeah, it was a surprisingly straight episode for how good it was.
Yes, yes, that's amazing. But like again, like straight men we don't hate. Autolycus is one of them. For me, I would say that the pegging scene, which is not inherently gay, but would suggest some behaviors that are not very typical for straight men.
Yeah. I also I considered that, and I was like, it's not actually
No, it's not.
gay, so I don't think I can pick that. I think I would go with the moment when it is revealed that Gabrielle is captured and Xena like immediately springs to her feet. It's this like very, I mean, obviously like she would have done that if it were her, close friend or something. But it's this, kind of stereotypical, like this is what the male hero would do in that moment if it was revealed that his damsel was captured and put in distress.
That's true, yeah. And also the intensity of Xena's reaction. Like, sure, like
Yeah.
we do react like that when our friends are in danger, but there is this different sort of vibe when it's this a person who is the most important person in the world to you. So yeah, that's a good one. I
Mhm.
agree. But again, it's like a gay.
Okay.
It's not a gay. It's an extremely hetero episode, but we still loved it.
And how much did we love it? How many chakrams out of 10 would you give
10.
it? I am 0%
I mean, yeah.
surprised.
Come on. Don't be stingy with the chakrams.
Okay, fine. It's a
Yay.
10. It's a 10. I hope everyone's happy. It's a 10.
Our first 2 tenths. Yay.
So that concludes our episode. If you listen to the whole thing, thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your time.
Yes. And as Autolycus says, like, share, and subscribe.
And you can also follow us on Instagram at Xena Made Me Gay. So we'll see you soon to talk about episode 18 called The Prodigal.
Ooh, there is going to be an interesting fact about that episode, I remember. So cool.
Okay.
Looking forward to that.
All right. Until then, bye.